The small town of Maplewood was like many other places across America, quiet, predictable, and uneventful. Its biggest claim to fame was the annual fall festival that brought families together for pumpkin carving and hay rides. Life here moved at its own slow pace, especially at Maplewood High School, where everyone knew each other's names, or at least their reputations. It was Monday morning when Malik Johnson walked through the front doors of the school for the first time. He carried himself differently from most kids his age. While others slouched under the weight of backpacks or hurried to catch up with friends, Malik moved with purpose. His steps were steady, almost silent, as if he didn't want to disturb the world around him. He wore a simple gray hoodie over a black t-shirt, paired with dark jeans and scuffed sneakers. In one hand, he held a folder containing his schedule. In the other, a paperback novel marked with a faded bookmark. Malik had just moved to Maplewood with his mother, Lisa, after spending years living with his uncle in a distant city. His uncle had been a soldier once, and during those years, Malik learned more than just how to throw a punch. He learned discipline, patience, and the importance of staying calm under pressure. These lessons shaped who he was, though no one at Maplewood could see that yet. To them, he was just another new face trying to find his place. At first, Malik tried to blend in. He sat quietly in class, answered questions only when called upon, and avoided drawing attention to himself. During lunch, he chose a spot at the edge of the cafeteria, far enough from the noisy crowds but close enough not to seem antisocial. He opened his book and ate slowly, savoring both the food and the silence. It wasn't that he disliked people, it was just easier this way. Easier to observe, to understand before stepping into the chaos. But in a place like Maplewood, blending in wasn't always an option. By Wednesday, word had spread about the new kid. Some students whispered about him in the hallways, curious, but cautious. Others dismissed him outright, assuming he'd fade into the background like so many before him. And then there were the ones who saw opportunity. Jake Miller was one of those people. Tall, broad-shouldered, and perpetually smirking, Jake ruled Maplewood High with an iron fist disguised as charm. He wasn't the smartest student, nor the most talented athlete, but he had something else: fear. Fear kept people in line, made them laugh at his jokes even when they weren't funny, and ensured he always got what he wanted. Alongside his two closest friends, Tyler Ross, a burly jock with a mean streak, and Chloe Bennett, a sharp-tongued cheerleader who could cut someone down with a single glance, Jake thrived on control. When Jake noticed Malik sitting alone in the cafeteria, something clicked in his mind. Newcomers were easy targets, vulnerable until they found their footing. And Malik looked particularly harmless, quiet, reserved, maybe even shy. Perfect. "Hey," Jake said loudly as he approached Malik's table, flanked by Tyler and Chloe. "You're the new guy, right?" Malik glanced up briefly, meeting Jake's gaze without flinching. "Yeah," he replied simply, returning to his book. Jake frowned. Most kids stammered or smiled nervously when he spoke to them. This one barely acknowledged him. It irked him, though he couldn't quite explain why. "What's your name again?" he pressed Malik. "Well, Malik," Jake drawled, leaning closer, "you might want to watch yourself around here. Things can get rough if you don't know the rules." Malik closed his book gently, placing it on the table beside his tray. "I'll keep that in mind," he said evenly, his tone neither confrontational nor submissive. Chloe snickered. "Look at him, all cool and collected. Think you're better than us, huh?" "No," Malik replied, looking directly at her now. "Just trying to eat my lunch." Tyler cracked his knuckles, a habit meant to intimidate. "Maybe we should teach him some respect." Jake grinned, liking the idea. "Yeah, maybe we should." For a moment, the tension in the air thickened. Malik didn't move, didn't blink. He simply stared back at them, his expression unreadable. Then, almost casually, he picked up his tray and stood. "If you're done wasting my time," he said, his voice low but clear, "I've got class." And with that, he walked away, leaving Jake and his friends standing there stunned. No one had ever walked away from them like that, not like this. Most kids cowered or begged for mercy. But Malik, he acted like they weren't worth his energy. Jake's jaw tightened. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Over the next few days, the harassment began in earnest. At first, it was subtle. Notes slipped into Malik's locker calling him names, his belongings mysteriously disappearing only to turn up later in strange places. But soon, it escalated. One afternoon, as Malik reached for his math textbook in his locker, a crumpled soda can came tumbling out, spilling sticky liquid onto his shoes. Laughter echoed down the hallway, and when Malik turned, he saw Jake and his crew doubled over in amusement. Still, Malik said nothing. He wiped off his shoes, retrieved his book, and went to class as if nothing had happened. His silence only fueled their frustration. They wanted a reaction, a fight, tears, anything. But Malik refused to give them the satisfaction. Even at home, Malik remained calm. When his mother asked how school was going, he shrugged and told her everything was fine. She eyed him suspiciously, sensing there was more to the story, but she didn't push. Instead, she reminded him of what his uncle used to say. Strength isn't just for fighting, it's for protecting what matters. One Friday afternoon, the bullying reached a new level. As Malik left the gym after basketball practice, he found his backpack dumped in a puddle outside the building. His notebooks were soaked, his pens scattered across the ground. Nearby, Jake leaned against the wall, watching with a smirk. "Oops," he said mockingly. "Guess you tripped?" Malik stopped, staring at the mess. For the first time since arriving in Maplewood, he felt anger bubbling beneath the surface. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to breathe deeply. "Uncle's," voice echoed in his mind. "Don't let them win. Don't let them see you break." Without a word, Malik bent down and began gathering his things. Jake stepped closer, towering over him. "You gonna cry now, tough guy? Or are you finally gonna do something about it?" Malik straightened slowly, meeting Jake's gaze head-on. There was fire in his eyes now, though his voice remained steady. "You have no idea what I'm capable of," he said softly. "But if you keep pushing me, you'll find out." Jake hesitated, caught off guard by the intensity in Malik's words. For a split second, doubt flickered across his face. But then Tyler and Chloe appeared, cheering him on, and Jake shook off the feeling. "Whatever," he muttered, turning away. This isn't over. As Malik watched them leave, he realized something important. They had underestimated him, and that was a mistake they would come to regret. Malik spent the rest of the weekend replaying Friday's encounter with Jake in his mind. Every word, every smirk, every taunt echoed in his thoughts like a broken record. He tried to push it aside, focusing instead on unpacking boxes or helping his mom organize their new apartment. But no matter how hard he worked, the anger simmered just beneath the surface. Sunday evening, Malik retreated to the garage, the one place where he could think clearly. It wasn't much, just a small space filled with old furniture, tools, and some equipment his uncle had sent over before they moved. A punching bag hung from the ceiling, its leather scuffed and worn from years of use. Beside it lay a rolled-up mat, faded but still functional. This was Malik's sanctuary, the place where he could let go of everything weighing him down. He slipped off his shirt, leaving only a white tank top, and began warming up. Stretching his arms, legs, and back, he focused on the rhythm of his breathing. Each movement was deliberate, precise. Once he felt ready, he stepped up to the punching bag. His fists flew in controlled bursts, landing sharp jabs and powerful hooks. The sound of leather meeting flesh echoed through the garage, punctuated by the occasional grunt of exertion. As he trained, memories of his uncle's lessons flooded his mind. Strength isn't just about hitting harder, his uncle used to say. It's about knowing when not to hit. Sometimes walking away takes more courage than throwing a punch. Those words had always stuck with Malik, guiding him through tough situations. But now, faced with Jake's relentless bullying, he wasn't sure what to do. Walking away hadn't stopped them. If anything, it had made them bolder. His mother, Lisa, appeared in the doorway, watching silently for a moment before stepping inside. She folded her arms across her chest, her brow furrowed with worry. "You've been out here for hours," she said gently. "What's going on?" Malik paused, lowering his guard. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand and turned to face her. "Nothing, Mom, just blowing off steam." Lisa didn't look convinced. She walked closer, her eyes scanning the bruises forming on his knuckles. "This doesn't look like nothing. Did something happen at school?" For a second, Malik considered brushing her off again. But then he sighed, realizing she deserved the truth. "There are these guys," he admitted. "They've been messing with me since I started. At first it was little stuff, notes in my locker, taking my things. But now, it's getting worse." Lisa frowned, her protective instincts kicking. Have you told anyone, a teacher, the principal?" "No," Malik replied quickly. "I can handle it." She studied him carefully, seeing the tension in his shoulders and the fire in his eyes. "Malik, I know your uncle taught you how to defend yourself, and I'm proud of the discipline you've shown so far. But there's a difference between standing your ground and letting someone walk all over you. If this keeps up, you need to speak up." Malik nodded, though he wasn't entirely convinced. Speaking up meant drawing even more attention to himself, and that was the last thing he wanted. Still, his mother's words lingered in his mind long after she left the garage. The next morning, Malik arrived at school determined to keep his head down. He avoided eye contact in the hallways, skipped breakfast altogether to dodge any potential run-ins with Jake, and kept his headphones on during breaks. For a while, it seemed to work. No one bothered him, and he managed to slip through the day, unnoticed. But peace never lasted long in Maplewood High. During gym class, Jake spotted Malik sitting alone on the bleachers, scrolling through his phone. Grinning mischievously, he nudged Tyler and Chloe, who were nearby. "Hey, check it out," Jake whispered. "Our friend Malik looks bored. Maybe we should entertain him." Tyler chuckled, cracking his knuckles. "Yeah, let's give him something to do." Before Malik realized what was happening, Jake grabbed his phone and tossed it to Tyler, who caught it effortlessly. "Hey!" Malik protested, jumping to his feet. "Give that back!" "Or what?" Jake taunted, spreading his arms wide. "What are you gonna do about it, huh?" Malik clenched his fists, resisting the urge to charge at them. Instead, he took a step forward, his voice low and steady. "You don't want to start something you can't finish." Jake laughed, shaking his head. "Oh, come on. You're not fooling anyone. We all know you're too scared to fight back." That stung. Not because it was true. Malik knew he could take Jake down in seconds if he wanted to, but because it highlighted the exact image Jake wanted to project. Weak, harmless, easy prey. Malik hated being underestimated. Still, he forced himself to stay calm. "Fine," he said, holding out his hand. "Just give it back." "Nah," Jake replied, smirking. "Tell you what, if you can beat me in a wrestling match, I'll give it back. Deal?" Malik hesitated. Wrestling wasn't his strongest skill, but he'd trained enough to hold his own. More importantly, this was Jake's way of testing him, of trying to assert dominance. If he backed down now, it would only embolden them further. "Deal," Malik said finally, narrowing his eyes. "But if I win, you leave me alone. For good." Jake grinned, clearly confident in his advantage. "Sure thing, tough guy. Let's see what you've got." The gym teacher reluctantly agreed to oversee the impromptu match, though he warned both boys to keep it clean. The other students gathered around, forming a loose circle as Jake and Malik stepped onto the mat. Jake immediately lunged forward, attempting to grab Malik in a headlock, but Malik sidestepped smoothly, dodging the attack with ease. "You're gonna have to try harder than that," Malik muttered, circling cautiously. Jake growled, frustrated by the miss. He charged again, this time aiming for Malik's legs. Malik anticipated the move, jumping back just in time to avoid being tackled. The crowd cheered, egging them on as the match continued. Minutes passed, and Jake grew increasingly desperate. Despite his size and strength, he couldn't land a single blow. Malik's movements were fluid, almost effortless, as he evaded every attempt. Finally, seizing an opening, Malik ducked under Jake's arm and swept his legs out from under him. With a thud, Jake hit the mat, staring up in shock as Malik pinned him down. The room fell silent. "Well?" Malik asked, looking down at Jake. "Do we have a deal?" Jake sputtered, his face red with embarrassment. Yeah, whatever. Just get off me." Malik released him and stood, brushing off his hands. As Jake scrambled to his feet, muttering curses under his breath, Malik held out his hand expectantly. Tyler reluctantly handed over the phone, glaring daggers at Malik. Without another word, Malik turned and walked away, leaving Jake fuming in front of the entire class. Later that afternoon, Emily Dawson approached Malik as he sat outside on a bench reviewing notes for his history test. She was one of the few students who hadn't joined in on the bullying or laughed along with it, and Malik appreciated her quiet kindness. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside him. "That was pretty impressive, what you did today." Malik shrugged, closing his notebook. "It wasn't a big deal." "It kinda was," Emily insisted. "Most people wouldn't stand up to Jake like that, especially not here." Malik glanced at her, surprised by her sincerity. "Thanks. I guess I just got tired of letting him push me around." Emily smiled faintly. "Still, you handled it really well. You didn't stoop to his level, you know. That takes guts." Her words struck a chord with Malik. For the first time since moving to Maplewood, he felt like someone understood him, not just his actions, but the reasoning behind them. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he thought. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the campus, Malik realized something important. Jake wasn't invincible. Neither were Tyler or Chloe. They were just kids, hiding behind bravado and cruelty because it made them feel powerful. But Malik? He had something they didn't: self-control. And that, he decided, was going to be his greatest weapon. The next day, Malik noticed something different about how people treated him. Some students glanced at him with newfound respect, whispering among themselves about the wrestling match. Others avoided him altogether, unsure what to make of someone who could take down Jake Miller so easily. But one person stood out: Emily Dawson. Emily had always been quiet, often blending into the background like Malik himself. She wasn't part of any particular group. She didn't hang out with the cheerleaders or the jocks, nor did she fit in with the drama club kids or the science geeks. Yet there was something genuine about her that made it easy to trust her. After their conversation the previous afternoon, Malik found himself looking forward to seeing her again. When Emily approached him during lunch, Malik was sitting alone, at his usual spot near the cafeteria windows. "Hey," she said, sliding onto the bench across from him. "Got a minute?" Malik nodded, closing the book he'd been reading. "Sure, what's up?" Emily placed a notebook on the table, flipping it open to reveal pages filled with scribbles and notes. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice low but excited. "About Jake." Malik raised an eyebrow. "What about him?" "Well," Emily continued, tapping the notebook, "you beat him in front of everyone yesterday. That's great, it showed him you're not someone to mess with, but I don't think he's going to stop. Not unless we do something bigger." Malik frowned. "We? You mean, you want to help?" "Yeah," Emily replied without hesitation. "Look, I know what it's like to deal with bullies. They thrive on fear and control. If we can turn the tables on them, if we can show everyone who they really are, it might finally put an end to this." Malik hesitated. He appreciated Emily's offer, but involving someone else felt risky. What if things went wrong? What if Jake retaliated against her instead? Still, he couldn't deny that her idea had merit. "Okay," he said slowly. "What did you have in mind?" Emily grinned, clearly pleased he was willing to listen. "First, we need to understand Jake better. Why does he act the way he does? What makes him tick? Once we figure that out, we can use it against him." Over the next few days, Malik and Emily worked together, piecing together information about Jake's behavior. They observed him in class, listened to his conversations in the hallways, and even asked subtle questions to mutual acquaintances. What they discovered surprised them. Jake's bravado, it turned out, was a mask for deep insecurity. His parents were wealthy but distant, leaving him to fend for himself most of the time. He craved attention and validation, which he sought through bullying and manipulation. Worse still, he feared failure more than anything else, especially public failure. To Jake, losing face in front of others was the ultimate humiliation. Armed with this knowledge, Malik and Emily devised a plan. It wouldn't involve physical confrontation, at least not directly. Instead, they would expose Jake's weaknesses, forcing him to confront the truth about himself. And they would do it in a way that left no room for retaliation. Their first step was simple: sabotage Jake's reputation. Using social media, they anonymously posted screenshots of private messages Jake had sent to classmates, revealing his cruel comments and manipulative tactics. At first, the posts went largely unnoticed, but when Chloe accidentally confirmed their authenticity during an argument with another student, the entire school erupted in shock. "Did you see those messages?" someone whispered in the hallway. "Jake's such a jerk. I can't believe he said that about Tyler," another added. "No wonder they fight all the time." As rumors spread, Jake grew increasingly paranoid. He demanded answers from his friends, accusing them of leaking the messages. When no one confessed, he lashed out, shouting and slamming lockers in frustration. The once unshakable leader was unraveling before everyone's eyes. Meanwhile, Malik and Emily prepared for Phase 2. This time, they decided to target Jake's ego. During gym class, Malik subtly challenged Jake to another competition, a timed obstacle course designed to test speed and agility. Knowing Jake's competitive nature, Malik knew he wouldn't refuse. "You're on," Jake snapped, glaring at Malik. "But if I win, you owe me lunch money for a month." "Deal," Malik replied coolly. "But if I win, you leave me, and everyone else alone for good." The challenge drew a crowd, just as Malik predicted. Students gathered around the course, cheering and placing bets. As the whistle blew, both boys sprinted forward, navigating hurdles, climbing walls, and crawling under nets. For the first half, Jake kept pace with Malik, fueled by adrenaline and pride. But as the obstacles grew tougher, his lack of endurance became apparent. By the final stretch, Malik surged ahead, crossing the finish line seconds before Jake collapsed in exhaustion. The cheers turned into jeers as Jake stumbled to his feet, red-faced and humiliated. "This isn't over," he shouted, pointing a finger at Malik. "You'll pay for this." Malik simply smiled, unfazed. "Promises, promises." While Jake stewed in anger, Emily took charge of the next phase, psychological warfare. She suggested Malik start small acts of defiance, each one designed to chip away at Jake's confidence. For instance, when Jake tried to trip Malik in the hallway, Malik caught his foot mid-step, causing Jake to stumble instead. When Jake mocked Malik's clothes, Malik responded with a witty comeback that left Jake speechless. Each victory, no matter how minor, chipped away at Jake's sense of superiority. One afternoon after gym class, Emily pulled Malik aside. "It's working," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. "People are starting to see Jake for who he really is. Even his own friends are questioning him." Malik nodded, feeling a flicker of satisfaction. For the first time since moving to Maplewood, he felt like he was gaining the upper hand. "Good," he replied. "But we're not done yet." Emily tilted her head, curious. "What's next?" Malik leaned closer, lowering his voice. "We set the stage for the final showdown." And so the pieces fell into place. Malik and Emily planned carefully, ensuring every detail was perfect. They knew Jake wouldn't back down, not until he had no choice. But when the moment came, Malik intended to give him exactly that, a choice. Whether Jake chose to change or continue down his destructive path remained to be seen. One thing was certain, though: Malik was ready. As the sun set over Maplewood High, casting long shadows across the campus, Malik felt a strange sense of calm. He had spent weeks preparing for this, strategizing and adapting. Now, all that was left was to wait. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for sure: he wouldn't let Jake define him. Not anymore. The final showdown between Malik and Jake was inevitable. Everyone at Maplewood High could feel it coming. The tension had been building for weeks. Jake, humiliated by his recent losses and exposed secrets, was desperate to reclaim his dominance. Malik, on the other hand, knew this confrontation would be different. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about teaching Jake a lesson he wouldn't forget. It all came to a head one afternoon after school. Malik had stayed late to finish up some work in the library when he heard footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. He turned to see Jake, flanked by Tyler and Chloe, blocking his path. Their faces were grim, their body language aggressive. Jake's fists were clenched, and his jaw was tight with anger. "All right, tough guy," Jake spat, stepping forward. "You've had your fun, messing with me in front of everyone, but it stops now." Malik didn't move. He stood calmly, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his expression unreadable. "I'm not the one who started this," he said evenly. "If you're looking for someone to blame, maybe take a look in the mirror." Jake's face reddened. "Don't act like you're better than me. You think you can waltz into my school, embarrass me, and get away with it? Newsflash, you don't belong here." Malik raised an eyebrow, unfazed by Jake's outburst. "Funny. Last time I checked, this isn't your school. And for the record, I haven't done anything to you that you didn't deserve." Chloe stepped forward, her arms crossed. "You really think you're so smart, don't you, always playing these little games, acting all superior? Well, guess what? We're done letting you win." Malik glanced at her briefly before returning his focus to Jake. "This isn't a game," he said quietly. "And trust me, I don't care about winning. What I care about is making sure people like you stop hurting others just because you can," Jake sneered. "Oh, please, spare us the lecture. You're no saint either. You've been plotting against me since day one." "That's where you're wrong," Malik replied, his voice steady. "I didn't ask for any of this. You made it personal when you decided to target me. All I did was defend myself." For a moment, Jake hesitated. There was something unsettling about Malik's calm demeanor, how he refused to rise to the bait, how he met every insult with logic and composure. It unnerved him, made him feel like he was losing control. But Jake couldn't back down now, not with Tyler and Chloe watching, not with his pride on the line. "Enough talk," Jake growled, taking another step closer. "Let's settle this once and for all." Malik sighed, setting his backpack down gently. "Fine. But remember, you brought this on yourself." Without warning, Jake lunged forward, swinging wildly. Malik sidestepped effortlessly, letting Jake's momentum carry him past. The blow missed completely, leaving Jake off balance and frustrated. He swung again, but Malik ducked under the punch, countering with a sharp jab to Jake's side. It wasn't enough to hurt him seriously, but it was enough to stun him. "What's the matter, Jake?" Malik taunted, circling him. "Is this all you've got?" Jake roared, throwing punch after punch, each one missing its mark. Malik moved with precision, dodging and weaving like water flowing around rocks. The few times he landed blows, they were calculated, not meant to injure, but to humiliate. With every failed attempt, Jake grew more desperate, more reckless. Tyler and Chloe watched helplessly, unsure whether to intervene. They had seen Jake fight before, but this was different. Malik wasn't just defending himself, he was dismantling Jake piece by piece, both physically and mentally. Finally, Jake stumbled backward, exhausted and defeated. His chest heaved as he struggled to catch his breath, his face flushed with shame. For the first time, he looked truly vulnerable. Malik stopped moving, standing a few feet away. "Had enough?" he asked, his tone neutral. Jake glared at him, hatred burning in his eyes. But beneath the anger, there was something else. Fear. Fear of losing everything he had built. Fear of being seen as weak. Slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. "Good," Malik said. "Now listen carefully. I don't want to fight you, I never did. But if you keep trying to hurt people, sooner or later someone will stand up to you. And next time, they might not be as forgiving as I am." Jake opened his mouth to retort, but no words came out. Instead, he turned and stormed off, Tyler and Chloe trailing behind him. As they disappeared around the corner, the small crowd of onlookers erupted into whispers. He totally owned him. Did you see Jake's face? He looked terrified. I can't believe Malik did all that without even breaking a sweat. Malik ignored the murmurs, picking up his backpack and heading toward the exit. Emily was waiting outside, leaning against the wall with a knowing smile. How'd it go? She asked. As well as expected, Malik replied, shrugging. He'll need some time to process everything. Emily nodded approvingly. You handled that perfectly. No violence, no drama. Just the truth hitting him where it hurts most. Malik smiled faintly. Thanks for your help. I couldn't have done it. Without you? Hey, teamwork makes the dream work, Emily joked, nudging him playfully. Besides, it felt good to finally stick it to Jake. They walked together toward the parking lot, chatting about lighter topics. For the first time in weeks, Malik felt a weight lift off his shoulders. The constant stress of dealing with Jake's bullying was gone, replaced by a sense of relief and accomplishment. But as they reached the bus stop, Malik paused, glancing back at the school. Do you think he'll change? He asked softly. Emily followed his gaze, thoughtful. Maybe. Or maybe he'll double down and try to rebuild his reputation. Either way, we showed him that bullying doesn't pay off. That's gotta count. For something. Malik nodded, accepting her words. Change wasn't guaranteed, but it was possible, and sometimes, possibility was enough. As the bus pulled up and they climbed aboard, Malik allowed himself a small smile. He had faced adversity head-on, using strategy and self-control to overcome challenges that would have broken others. More importantly, he had inspired those around him to question their own roles in enabling toxic behavior. Maplewood High wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But Malik had planted a seed of courage, resilience, and hope. And as the bus drove away, carrying him toward home, Malik knew he had made a difference. The days following the confrontation between Malik and Jake were unlike anything Maplewood High had ever seen. Word of the fight, and Malik's calm, controlled response, spread quickly, becoming the talk of the school. Some students admired Malik for standing up to Jake without resorting to excessive violence. Others felt sorry for Jake, watching as his once unshakable reputation crumbled around him. But no matter where you stood, one thing was clear. Things were changing. Jake, however, wasn't ready to give up. Humiliated and angry, he spent hours pacing his room at home, replaying the events over and over in his mind. He couldn't shake the image of Malik's steady gaze, the way he dodged every punch like it was nothing. It infuriated Jake, not just because he lost, but because Malik had made him look weak in front of everyone. To Jake, weakness was the ultimate sin. But there was something else gnawing at him, something deeper. For the first time in years, Jake found himself questioning his own actions. Why did he feel the need to bully others? What was he trying to prove? These thoughts scared him almost as much as facing Malik again. So instead of confronting them, he pushed them aside, focusing instead on revenge. Early Monday morning, Jake arrived at school determined to regain control. He called an emergency meeting with Tyler and Chloe, pulling them into an empty classroom before first period. We're not letting this slide, he declared, pacing back and forth. Malik thinks he can humiliate me and walk away unscathed? Well, he's wrong. Chloe crossed her arms, looking skeptical. What exactly do you have in mind? Last time we tried messing with him, it blew up in our faces. Yeah, Tyler added, scratching his head. And now half the school hates us. Maybe we should lay low for a while. No, Jake snapped, slamming his fist against the desk. That's what he wants. Us to back down, to act like cowards. If we do that, we're finished. Chloe sighed, shaking her head. I don't know, Jake, this feels different. Malik isn't like the others. He's smart, calculating, and honestly, kind of scary. Jake hesitated, hating the truth in her words. Still, he refused to admit defeat. Fine, he said finally. If you two won't help me, I'll handle it myself, but mark my words, I'm taking him down. As the day progressed, Jake stewed in silence, plotting his next move. By lunchtime, he had settled on a plan: ambush Malik after school, catch him off guard, and make sure no one was around to witness it. It wasn't elegant, but it was direct. And sometimes brute force worked best. Meanwhile, Malik went about his day as usual, oblivious to Jake's growing desperation. He sat with Emily during lunch, discussing their upcoming history project, and helped a classmate solve a tricky math problem. When the final bell rang, he gathered his books and headed outside, planning to walk home and relax. But as he turned the corner near the gym, he froze. Jake was waiting for him alone this time. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, his shoulders tense. Despite his attempt to appear confident, Malik could see the cracks in his facade, the slight tremor in his hands, the hesitation in his stance. "What do you want, Jake?" Malik asked, his voice calm but firm. Jake took a step forward, his jaw tightening. "You think you've won, don't you? You think you've broken me." "I don't think anything," Malik replied. "I just want to be left alone." Jake laughed bitterly, though it lacked conviction. "Too bad you don't get to walk away from this, not after everything you've done." Malik studied him carefully, noting the anger simmering beneath the surface. But there was something else too: pain, vulnerability. For a brief moment, Malik considered walking away, letting Jake vent his frustrations until he burned himself out. But then he remembered something his uncle used to say: "Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can climb back up." "You're right," Malik said suddenly, surprising both himself and Jake. "I haven't given you a chance to." "Walk away." Jake blinked, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about choice," Malik explained, taking a cautious step closer. "You've been so focused on proving how tough you are that you forgot why you started bullying in the first place. Was it because you wanted power? Respect? Or was it because you were afraid of being ignored?" Jake frowned, his defenses wavering. "Shut up, you don't know anything about me." "I know more than you think," Malik countered gently. "I see the way you push people away, the way you lash out when you're scared. And I know what it's like to feel invisible. But here's the thing, Jake. You don't have to be that person anymore. You can change." For a long moment, Jake said nothing. He stared at Malik, searching for signs of mockery or deceit. But all he found was sincerity. Slowly, reluctantly, he lowered his fists. "Why are you doing this?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "After everything I've done to you?" "Because holding on to hate doesn't fix anything," Malik replied. "It only makes you bitter. Trust me, I've been there." Jake swallowed hard, struggling to process Malik's words. Part of him wanted to lash out to prove he was still in charge, but another part, a quieter, more fragile part, wanted to believe him, to hope that maybe, just maybe, he could start over. Finally, Jake extended his hand, trembling slightly. I don't know how to change," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "But if you're willing to give me a chance, I'll try." Malik hesitated, studying Jake's outstretched hand. Then slowly, he reached out and shook it. "That's all anyone can ask for." As they parted ways, neither boy spoke, but the weight of the moment lingered in the air, heavy yet hopeful. For Jake, it was the beginning of a long, difficult journey, one filled with self-reflection and growth. For Malik, it was validation that kindness and patience could sometimes accomplish what anger and aggression could not. Later that evening, Malik recounted the encounter to his mother, Lisa, who listened intently. "Do you think he'll really change?" she asked when he finished. Malik shrugged, leaning back in his chair. "I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But at least he's willing to try. That's more than I expected." Lisa smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "You've come a long way since we moved here, Malik. I'm so proud of you." Malik returned her smile, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. Change wasn't easy, for Jake, for him, or for anyone, but it was possible. And sometimes, that possibility was enough to keep moving forward. As he drifted off to sleep that night, Malik thought about the future, about the challenges ahead, the friendships he'd formed, and the lessons he'd learned. Maplewood High wasn't perfect, but it was home. And for the first time in a long time, Malik felt like he belonged. Months passed, and life at Maplewood High began to settle into a new rhythm. Jake's transformation wasn't immediate or easy. It came in small steps, moments of progress followed by setbacks. At first, he struggled to let go of old habits, snapping at classmates who questioned his sincerity, or slipping back into defensive behavior when challenged. But Malik kept his promise, offering quiet support whenever Jake needed it. He didn't lecture or judge. Instead, he led by example, showing Jake what it meant to be kind, patient, and resilient. One of the turning points came during a group project in history class. Jake was assigned to work with Malik and Emily, much to his initial dismay. "Why do I have to be stuck with you two?" he muttered under his breath as they gathered around a table in the library. Malik raised an eyebrow but said nothing, letting Emily respond. "Because we're supposed to learn how to collaborate," she replied evenly. "Besides, this could be fun." Jake rolled his eyes but reluctantly joined in. As they worked together, something surprising happened. Jake started contributing ideas, sharing insights about historical events that even Malik hadn't considered. For the first time in years, he felt valued, not for being the loudest or toughest, but for his actual thoughts and opinions. By the end of the project, Jake had earned not only a good grade, but also a newfound sense of confidence. "Thanks," he mumbled awkwardly as they packed up their books. "For, not treating me like garbage." Malik grinned. "Anytime. Just remember, this is your chance to keep proving people wrong." As word of Jake's efforts spread, other students began to notice. Some were skeptical at first, unwilling to forgive him for past mistakes. But over time, his consistent actions spoke louder than words. He apologized to those he'd hurt, helped classmates struggling with assignments, and even stood up for a freshman being teased by older kids. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, and that was enough. For Malik, these changes reinforced his belief in the power of compassion and understanding. He realized that people weren't born bullies, they became them because of fear, insecurity, or pain. By addressing the root causes rather than reacting to surface-level behaviors, real change was possible. Emily played a key role in this process too. Her friendship with Malik deepened as they continued working together, both academically and socially. She admired his ability to remain calm under pressure and his unwavering commitment to doing what was right. In return, Malik appreciated her humor, intelligence, and willingness to stand by him no matter what. "Do you ever get tired of being the bigger person?" Emily asked one afternoon, as they studied in the park. Leaves crunched beneath their feet, and the autumn air carried a crisp chill. "All the time," Malik admitted with a chuckle. "But I figure if I can make things better, even just a little bit, it's worth it." Emily smiled, tossing a fallen leaf into the breeze. "You're going to do amazing things, you know that? Whatever you decide to do after high school, you'll crush it." Malik shrugged modestly, though her words warmed his heart. "We'll see. What about you? Any big plans?" "I'm thinking about studying psychology," Emily said thoughtfully. "Maybe help kids like us deal with stuff like bullying. Who knows? Maybe I'll write a book or something." "You should," Malik encouraged. "The world needs more people like you." Their conversation drifted to lighter topics, favorite movies, music, and dreams for the future. But the bond they shared remained strong. Together they had faced challenges that would have broken others, emerging stronger and wiser because of it. When graduation day finally arrived, the atmosphere at Maplewood High buzzed with excitement. Students dressed in blue gowns filed onto the outdoor stage, greeted by applause from proud families and teachers. Malik sat near the front, his mother beaming in the audience. Beside him, Emily whispered jokes to keep everyone relaxed, while Jake, seated a few rows back, fidgeted nervously. As each name was called, graduates walked across the stage to receive their diplomas. When Malik's turn came, he stepped forward, confidently, shaking hands with the principal before posing for photos. His mother cheered louder than anyone, tears streaming down her face. For Lisa, this moment represented more than academic success. It symbolized her son's growth, resilience, and ability to rise above adversity. After the ceremony, friends and family gathered for hugs, congratulations, and pictures. Jake approached Malik hesitantly, holding out his diploma. "Can I get a picture with you?" he asked, scratching the back of his neck. "For old time's sake?" Malik grinned, nodding. "Sure thing. Smile for the camera." As they stood side by side, arms slung over each other's shoulders, neither boy could have imagined how far they'd come since their first encounter. They weren't best friends, and they likely never would be, but they had reached a place of mutual respect and understanding, and sometimes that was enough. Later that evening, Malik found himself alone on the roof of his apartment building, staring out at the stars. The night was cool, the city lights twinkling below like fireflies. He thought about everything he'd experienced over the past year, the struggles, the victories, the lessons learned, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life hadn't been easy, but it had taught him valuable truths. That strength isn't always about fighting back, that forgiveness is harder than revenge, and that change begins with choice. Most importantly, he'd discovered that true courage wasn't about standing alone. It was about lifting others up, even when it was difficult. As he gazed at the horizon, Malik allowed himself to dream. College awaited him in the fall, along with new opportunities and challenges. Wherever life took him next, he knew he'd carry the lessons of Maplewood High close to his heart. And as the wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers of hope and possibility, Malik smiled. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time he felt ready to face it head-on.